Our Q&A session here, we're going to invite back all our 4 speakers so that you can applaud them or throw your shoes at them. Luckily, the shoes are all outside.
But all the shoes are outside.
Please give a round of applause if you enjoy yourself tonight. And that you learned something. And that you learned something today. So here's the official photographer asked me to say. So here's where I basically say, like, if you want to leave now, you can leave now. No hard feelings. I still like you. Not as much. And here's where you get to ask any questions to all of them. I'll moderate the stupid questions or the smart questions.
Aaron, is there like any videos for somebody to learn about meditation, like on YouTube? Do you have like any author who do such stuff, like doing online teaching?
Yeah, there are lots of resources online. There are all sorts of types of meditation that you can learn for different purposes. The Autobiography of a Yogi, the organization that he started and founded, will provide really, really good meditation lessons. The meditation that I practice every day is literally for enlightenment. So just so you know, I'm very transparent about it. I don't meditate for productivity, for good health, for any of these other reasons. I meditate for the direct realization of God in my life. So that's why I meditate, and that's what Paramahansa Yogananda will advocate for meditation. There are all sorts of other meditation techniques and places. There's something called the relaxation response, which is a very secular meditation technique, which will tell you simply how to calm yourself and go deep within to the alpha state of mind and enjoy the benefits of meditation just the same as anyone else. So there are all sorts of resources. You can also go to theron.me. It's my personal pitch, my plug, whatever. It's my own website. I do have meditations on there. But I'm more excited to make meditations about startups. If you go to the other website and tell me to do it. So yes, that's one of those things.
Thank you. Cool. I personally meditate for relaxation every morning. Because I have 4 kids. I sleep. No, it's funny, but I sleep like half an hour a day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, Richard.
Yeah, so about the Amazon Web Services, are you concerned with any lock-in? Like, how much are you changing your software to like the Amazon? So if you wanted to change to like CloudFoundry or some other supply distribution, how concerned are you about that?
It's a really good question. It's something which we've considered each time we adopt a service, what our get out is. And I guess we're kind of fortunate in the moment that we're in a bit of a halfway house between running our own stuff and running stuff at AWS that we have to build into both environments. So as I say, with things like DynamoDB, the programmer in me thinks, wow, that looks fantastic, love to go with that, play with it. The CIO in me has to say, well, hang on, how do we justify locking ourselves into that? And even things, even if you were still using AWS in the future, if you're tying all of your environments in there, your dev environments and everything else, the only place you can run it is in AWS, it could cause some real problems. So yeah, it's definitely a concern with some of the services. What's also nice about AWS is a lot of their APIs for provisioning have kind of become de facto standards. So a lot of other companies use very similar or the same APIs. So you don't lock yourself in quite so much with those kind of provisioning APIs.
So,
Yes.
when you're using S3 for CDN, how would you compare that to using Akamai? Because that's the one I'm more familiar with from the CDN point of view.
Yeah, so Akamai we use a particular product of theirs called Dynamic Site Accelerator. So that's basically routing all of the dynamic pages through their CDN back to our origin service. and they do various kind of things at the protocol level to optimize that and optimize the routing. Amazon doesn't yet support that. They have started doing some dynamic stuff recently, but there's still quite a few missing pieces. So you can't do post requests, for example, through that, which is a fairly big downside for us. So for all of like that our dynamic stuff, we're still using Akamai. For the static stuff, I'm very happy with CloudFront, and as I say, it's a fraction of the price of Akamai.
So the price point is kind of...
The price is, yeah, I mean, look, Akamai is a fantastic service, and particularly if you're working in countries like Indonesia, where the internet infrastructure is less advanced than say Malaysia and Singapore and Hong Kong, then there's probably a fair bit of added benefit. But you know, if you're accessing a POP in Singapore from Malaysia, the latency is so low that it's not really an issue, and running out of CloudFront is more than enough.
But I'm going to pretend that you won't. That's what Gary's for. Yes, Gary.
I have a question about AWS. Are you using, I'm not sure if you can answer this, but are you using multi-region? And if you are using it, how are you handling the balancing in regions? Like, I assume Amazon has something for this already.
Yeah, multi-region, multi-AZ is kind of an interesting topic. And I've had multiple debates with people on Twitter about it in the past. So for me, generally multi-AZ is good enough. The chances of a full region outage are, well, I mean, history shows they happen, but
Perfect storm.
yeah.
Any storm.
Any storm. Yeah.
Sandy.
But I know, I always take the pragmatic view of, look, there will be outages wherever you are. If you're running your own stuff, you're going to have an outage. And you have to say, well, are my people as good as or better than the people at Amazon? You know, at what point is it economic to keep pushing for so many nines in your uptime? And at which point is it just, okay, we accept that we might have some outages and that we will be able to deal with those in an appropriate way. I mean, fingers crossed, Southeast Asia, Singapore, AWS has not had any issues yet. There always things happening in US East. My theory is, you know, that's where they do a lot of their testing, a lot of their new stuff happens there. It's also their largest, so if you're in US East, you're more at risk. But that doesn't mean that Singapore is not going to have an outage.
US East is also the highest concentration of Amazon technology.
It was the first one, so that's where everyone's there.
Yeah, absolutely. But for us in this region, Singapore, so far, touch wood, has been.
Same here.
Wuhan's head.
But yeah, multi-region, I guess, is possible, but very hard to do properly.
I have a follow-up question. So recently this new pass ad hoc is doing multi-region. So you just click a button and just shift your ad to either Southeast Asia or US or anywhere. So wouldn't that be beneficial in those cases? Let's say somebody goes down.
Yeah.
Can you repeat the question?
So, the company, the name is just Appfold, that's it, thank you. Which does, so it's platform as a service which does multi-region. Look, I haven't had experience with that one directly. My experience of it is the hard part is getting data synchronization right, and particularly if you're running in a multi-mask setup, that you're adding a lot of complexity. And it's actually something we looked at as we were moving across from our own kit to AWS, was how do we do that? Do we run it out of two places simultaneously, or do we just move some and leave others? And we decided on the latter because running out of two places simultaneously just added so much extra complexity and so many more places that you could break it, that it just didn't seem worthwhile doing. So I don't know how they handled it, but those kinds of things where particularly where you're doing a lot of writes in two places, can start getting tricky.
Sorry, another AWS question. You said you just started using auto scaling, so I was skeptical about that because it could auto scale up, but it didn't scale back down. Is it still like that, or does it scale back down itself?
It does scale back down,
Okay.
but my advice would be to
Not use that. Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely, of course, in AWS's best interests to
Keep everything up. Yeah.
Just in case. If I need it. Always.
Yeah, so we do keep a monitor out on how many instances we're running, so that we're keeping track of that. And you know, we're running other services, things like New Relic, which are on a per instance basis.
Yeah.
So they get
They bill you more if you get more instances.
if we're doing more.
Any questions?
I was going to say, how do you quickly rebuild your machines? What technology? Is it just a whole bunch of shell scripts or Puppet?
We're using Puppet for the infrastructure side, and then that's
Not slaves in Indonesia.
So we're using Puppet for the infrastructure, and for the code, we've kind of knocked up a bit of a system using Capistrano and Jenkins to pull the code out of Git and to deploy it to the web machines.
Do you have like a one-time build type thing that you test often enough?
Yeah, relatively often. But it's also, so the staging environment, production environment are identical there, so you can pull them
I
up.
like the question was swimming. In the UK, the Guardian newspaper collects a lot of data about companies. So I'm thinking the Star in Malaysia seems to be a good popular paper. I mean, surely they collect lots of information about government.
Yeah.
Stuff they do, and you can query it. Is that you get stuff from that?
There is the long answer and the short answer. The long answer is somebody wrote the scraper for that. The short, and I forget to run it. It's not updated, this one. It's
That
just
works.
full text. It's full text. You still you do not have the context, that's the first one. It's a full text thing, so you need to find the right keyword. So the best way for it is to have somebody to actually read it, tag it, crowdsource it somewhere.
I mean, which is the best newspaper for actually collecting data on?
So what we learned from that project is none, because
That's what I would say.
it's either very government centric or very partisan. So it's not. So in the end of the day, grab both, and you just leave from there. So the first rule we have is that don't trust the data, analyze and track everything down.
Actually, the data is available. It's just that, like a lot of the agencies and stuff, they roll their own, and it's worth money. So obviously, like if you're a marketing person, you can buy that kind of data and stuff.
Yes.
Obviously, you're not into the buying thing.
We don't have money. That's a
And,
reason.
and I don't know, like the buying of the data, obviously it comes with like terms and stuff. You can't make it open and shit like that, obviously, right?
I can't tell that. I need to investigate that further. Once you got money. And also there's another thing. The Guardian guys, they got. They have actually. They are one of those guys that actually push data-driven journalism. So they actually collect data like journalists. So yeah, we have been checking for sources for this as well. Bloomberg surprisingly have very good information for a machine company.
And also, is there like version of WikiLeaks in Malaysia? Is there any high-profile leaks from government, or no one has?
I do not know.
There were previous leaks by WikiLeaks about
There is some
Malaysia.
from Malaysia.
Yeah.
But it's not.
But nothing important.
Yeah, it's nothing really significant. It's more. If you read it, it seems very gossipy. It's like talking about this person and that
Yeah.
person.
And also it tend to be the leaks tend to be more important for diplomatic affairs, not something
Not for people.
somebody
Right?
Yeah.
not somebody on the ground. So we say we answer we need to spend time on this, but that's not our focus now. We should have, but we also need more help.
Right.
Yeah, two questions on this topic.
Yeah.
One, do you have any legal issues with like the websites basically having copyright things going on? Like if I were to scrape my property, you might copy something.
Okay. Okay.
You know, that kind of stuff.
All right. Okay.
he's like,
Okay. There's
there's two answers for it. If it's a government website, we believe it is our right as a taxpayer to get the information that we want. If it is on the government website because it's hosted with our tax money. If it is on a private company side, yeah, we will need to be careful about that on copyright because it is not something that we actually pay. So it is owned by private individuals. So we are breaking the law.
So, second question, have you scraped Bank Negara?
Yeah. Bank Negara surprisingly got good information, but it's not our focus now. It's not our focus now. Because our focus now is on Parliament, because we have signed the opening Parliament declaration, which is actually an international initiative with Sunlight Foundation and Open Knowledge Foundation to actually open up the Parliament of each country, Congress, Parliament, whatever, on this to make the information more easily available, either as API or whatnot. So that's why our focus has been on MP, Parliament, and whatnot. I mean, we wish to have that, but if we have more people to do that, we would love it. But unfortunately, we have that much many volunteers.
I'm kind of curious, like, because the two of you are here, and one is sucking data, one has a lot of data, like. So, does it bother? I mean, would it bother you if swimming scrapes high property for location-based stuff, property data and stuff to aggregate that into some sort of information?
Like average price of houses.
You know, because you can do like matrixing out and stuff and find out, like, because he said he's got a problem with boundary data and stuff like that. So I'm just curious, as a commercial enterprise, what's your stand in terms of open data and contributing back to the data? I'm not trying to paint like I'm just curious about what is the official company stance as well?
Official company stance, I wouldn't be able to say right now without checking. Look, I mean, I think it was interesting what you were saying about that scraping my properties. That certainly, from my understanding, and this is me speaking as me, not as my company, is that facts cannot be copyrighted. So something like a house has 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and it's on this street, is not copyrighted. That's a fact. It exists. Once you get into things like the photographs of that house, the description, those kinds of things, that's copyrighted and you can't scrape that. For me as a CIO, I mean, of course we do keep an eye out for scrapers and so on. We tend to block them, and the reason we block them is more to do with abuse of resources and taking up
because you're paying, that's right.
Rather than any particular problem, because a lot of that information is available from multiple sources as well, and of course for our advertisers, they want their listings to be as widely available as possible. But yeah, I mean, certainly we are very interested in contributing to those kind of things. If there's good causes that we can, then absolutely we'd be interested.
Can I add on top of that? Certain information it's not copyrighted, but there is official secret act.
So does iProperty have any API for accessing, like, to find out like what's the average price of stuff? Was it a trade secret? I'm very naive.
Well, internally we're building a lot of APIs at the moment, and it's certainly our intention to start opening those up and trying to involve the developer community more in building interesting things based on that.
Because that's literally sitting on a gold mine of information that's just waiting to be exploited.
Yes, because
I heard gold.
Because if the main issue with scraping is resources, you can make a public API and put it on like, use this server, we know like here's the maximum cost you guys can have.
Yeah.
So we get the data without having to do the manual scraping.
And then if you're gonna suck more, I'm gonna charge you something.
Yeah.
Then you can make some tiny impact.
Developer fees and the usual.
I believe that there is outside initiative that actually do that, company contribute data. But open data and open government in general is very new down here.
I was just going to add, like, the Parliament website actually has a copyright protection.
Yeah, it's copyright protection, but you also pay the taxpayer.
Yeah.
I pay tax, FYI.
No,
so I have the right to actually get the
although it's
information.
copyright protection, but like it's actually facts, so they can't hide it.
I just want to quickly comment. You guys might have a solution to this problem. I did some work for a vet, and they have a big database, MySQL 9 from Microsoft. It's got like millions of records about pet health, you know, what they died of, things like that. And there's so much information there, it's absolutely nuts.
Yes.
But and the thing is, it's like, oh, we don't have time to data mine it or figure it out because we're just trying to run this spec and the 10 or 12 branches of it. If someone could write a program to sort of, you know, leech onto that MySQL server, you know, rip out all the personal details of the pet owners, and you know, maybe anonymize the data so the pets. Well, I mean, you can.
Okay.
And then have an API. This sort of, I mean, I want you to sort of have that layer and offer that, and then, you know, go to the local university and say, hey, check out this data. There's, you know, 10 years of billions of pets here. You can figure out what pets are dying of and make them live longer.
Oh yeah. I got to answer for that. My current project, I quite scrape them. It's actually a data dump site. Currently, it's allowing CSV and JSON upload. We convert it into API. No querying. Sorry. You can query by ID though.
No, what? No query?
No querying as in very fancy querying.
Data dumping site.
Someone needs to do something
Yeah.
on the server side where we remove personal information
Okay.
and you know,
Okay.
you can
Sterilize
use
it,
MySQL
sanitize
for the
it.
Yeah.
database.
So
As long as you can prove that you're not going to make the MySQL server fall over.
yeah. So let's continue on that. There's one project, a data dump site. The second thing is you need to write a specific script because each data is very different. Even from Parliament, it's one set of database. The structure is very different. CIDB, another data set. The number is also very different. CIDB has 300,000 rows of records, companies, which actually crashes my computer if I ever need to compress it and dump it in the database. And it takes me 3 days to download. Actually, it's fun time, big data. Oh yeah, and also for Parliament, we got like 222 MPs, very small numbers of it, pretty small. So the data is very different, the amount is very different. We need a specific script for it, which is why scripting language is awesome. We use, which is why instead of Java or whatnot. So you can write small script to actually extract data out and put it inside whatever you do not.
Assuming it's like a data coal miner, it's like
Someone needs to write that script for all these
Yeah.
databases.
Well, I have to. I volunteered.
So my biggest criticism at the moment for Sina project is the lack of visualization.
Okay. We do not have the base. Our short answer is we don't have the base, as in we do not have the data. The long answer is we don't have a volunteer, but before we have volunteer, we need the data. So
Are you guys planning to do that? Because that is
yes.
that is ultimately the thing that will actually get the public involved.
Correct.
About.
We acknowledge that, but we do not have the time because we do not have enough data. 1 year running, we only have 3 data sets.
But I think right now you need plumbers, right? You don't really need the plasterers and the painters. You need
Yeah, we need the
plumbers.
base of this.
You need the plumbers and the trench diggers.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there are certain things that you need to have done. I think in terms of the CIDB,
Yes, I know.
that could have done. Be done.
Yeah, CIDB is also a mine. You can call it gold mine, you can call it a minefield. Depends on who you're talking to. So yeah, we are planning on that, but sooner or later, the answer is sooner or later.
Cool. Any more questions from the crowd? Yes.
Yeah, we're able to keep to Scully. Scully is the major.
They are internet company that provides search and whatnot. They are like Yahoo of Malaysia.
They did the majority of agency websites.
Huh?
The major
Government agency website.
Scully has about 40 million.
small agency.
Yeah. So the answer for that is we do not want to spend time on procedures. We need to get it up fast soon. Otherwise, but if we really going to follow by procedures and rules, by this year we won't be able to have the basic out for the first place. We only have 3 core people with helpers coming here and there. So it's very important. And also that we need to have focus. Our focus Parliament now, which Scully might not have.
Actually, just to check who's interested to help out this project. Okay, just join the group, and there's always a lot of discussion.
Yeah. Our concern now is not that we don't have idea we have that a lot. When people talk about, hey, you can buy from SSL, we think of that since the beginning of the project. When people give idea, chances is you might even think of that for a long time. The only thing we need now is maintainer. Once you have maintenance, then things will go smooth. Then we are more readily accept more project and whatnot lah.
Okay. Any more questions for speakers tonight? Very hot topic, open data and AWS. Not so much on startup meditation. Startup thing.
Okay, I got one on meditation.
Yeah, sure.
So, remember you mentioned about the river thing and you sitting and then, so don't mind it. Do you visualize it in HD? Was it 3D rotating or just one point of view that you just
This is a technical question.
That's not technical, it's just
What sort of river was it actually? Was it in color or was it black and white?
yeah,
What's the rare solution? And was it murky?
That depends what kind of
It's supposed to be
connection you have.
clear lah.
No, murky and the river water.
Oh, okay.
Like Sungai Kelab.
Plant river.
Like
It depends what sort of connection I have,
it's like Avatar.
right?
Yeah.
No, it's just a river. I didn't describe it for you because I left it up to you.
Okay, so that's
You
like
can do
your
anything.
imagination.
It's entirely up to you. Get your Yes, Z.
Last startup meditation question. You mentioned that Steve Jobs spoke his iPad for 10 years, right? Wasn't he famous for being an asshole? What do you have to say about that?
I mean,
Did he meditate himself to cancer?
yeah, he can choose whatever he wants. If he wants to be an asshole or whatever. But he also, had this side of life. I'm not an asshole, so that's what I care about. There's good sides and bad sides to everyone. Steve Jobs, to me, to everyone.
I think it's a bit general. I think it's a bit too general to say that he's an asshole. I mean, from what context? He's been really nice to a lot of people as well. I mean, his wife and his kids, they got nothing bad to say about him. So I think it's a bit of a generalizing that he's an asshole.
He has
To you,
priorities.
yeah.
You work in some
Just
Like, I'm an asshole.
Yeah, I used to
Garrett's
say
an
this.
asshole. Like, everybody knows that. Wait, one last question before we call it a night. It's been, my brain's like stuffed.
so
No, everybody's like happy. No, I know everything. Give it up for our speakers. Thank you, Jared. Thank you, Jared. Back there.